Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be sharing with you how to make this dress with a side lacing bar and a scallop hemline. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. So let's dive right into today's video. To start, here is my pattern and I've used it to cut out this part. So I cut out the lining and the main fabric. So for this dress you can use a mikado or a duchess, and I added half inch on top. So here you need this pattern to know where you're going to cut through on your dress. So I'll just go ahead and make that mark there. You'll be making this both on the lining and on the main dress, but on the lining you'll be sewing it as a dart, but on the main dress you go ahead to cut it open. So while I was sewing this, I mistakenly opened up the lining of the front, but I joined it back. So but please, when you're sewing yours, do not open up the dart lines on the lining. So I'll be showing you how to sew that when I'm sewing the back part of the dress. So I'm just going to place this pattern on the dress and make sure you have half inch on top at the upper part, and I'll mark the dart lines this way. So now I'll notch this open and I'll cut this to the line. Just do not extend more than the line that you have marked on your pattern. So after I'm done cutting this open, we are going to be sewing like a loop that will be inserting through this part of the dress right now. So for this dress, 2 yards is enough to make it, unless you're on the plus size, so you can go ahead to make use of 3 yards. Before inserting, I'm going to go ahead to mark. So I'll be dividing the lines into 4 because I'll be adding 4 loops at that point. So if your under bust to your waistline is a bit longer, you can use up to 5 or 6 loops, but what we have at the thumbnail is just 4, so that's why I'm making use of 4 loops. So for the lacing area of the dress, I'll be joining this. So this is the part that will be serving as the rope of the lacing bar. So here I'll just go ahead and fold it, which is about 1.5 inches by 25. So for this I have 7 inches on this point, so I'll just go ahead and stitch it together, but I'll be cutting this into 2, and that means I'll be using 3.5 for each side of my loop. So you can use between 2 inches to 3 inches. So after I was done sewing, this is what I have. So just like I said, it is 7 inches and I'll be cutting it into 2, making it 3.5. So I'll just fold this and I will be pinning this on the dress. So you're going to make sure you pass this loop in between the fabric, and then you're going to pin it, and pin it exactly on that line that you marked. So I'll just go ahead and I'll pin this. So after this I'll be pinning the other one. So I'll move over to the next line and I'm going to fold my loop, and I'll place, then pass it over this way, and I'll go ahead to pin it down. After pinning this down, I'll move over to the next loop and I'll go ahead to repeat the same process. So I'll continue doing this till I pin the third loop and then the last one. So after that, I'll just go ahead and sew with half inch on this part, and then re-sew it again to hold it very well because of the loop at this side. So I'll also go ahead and repeat this whole process I did on this part on the other side of the dress. And after I'm done sewing, I'll go ahead to stitch up this dart with half inch. So I was not supposed to notch it, I was just supposed to sew up the dart to match the front or the main fabric. So after I'm done sewing, this is what I have, and this is what the back looks like. Now I'll also bring the lining. So here is the lining. So the side that I sewed the dart will be the wrong side of the dart, and I'll place the right side of the fabric facing the right side of the lining, and I'll go ahead to pin. So when you're pinning, make sure that your fabric matches your lining. If you have any excess on the lining, please go ahead to trim it off because you do not need that. And if you notice on the pattern at the lower part, I didn't add any ½ inch again because we have already added that when we are cutting out the dress. And make sure the scallop area matches both the lining and the main fabric. So after that, we'll go ahead to stitch up this dress. And to stitch, you're going to start at the neckline stitch, and please do not stitch the armhole, then follow the side, the lower part, and then stitch up the side of the dress. So another thing I noticed is that the dress was not as free as I wanted. So at the hip point, you can add up to 5 inches, then extend it more at the lower part to give you that very free flare effect. So after I'm done stitching this, the next thing I will do is to go ahead to notch my fabric round. So you're going to notch your neckline and go ahead to notch the scallop area of your dress so that it's going to relax very well, and you're going to be ironing this also. So after this, I'll just go ahead and turn it to the right side. So after I'm done turning it, this is what I have on my dress, and I'll go ahead to iron it and also pull out the scallop area very well. So if you notice that your scallop is not showing, the design there is not showing, please go back and re-notch your dress, or you can just re-sew it back and notch. So we move on to the back pattern. I'll also go ahead and place and mark. So make sure that you add ½ inch at the shoulder and also at the neckline. So after marking this, I'll unpin this. So I cut both the lining and the main fabric. So in this part of the video, I'll be showing you how to sew your lining because I mistakenly notched the front part of the lining, which I was not supposed to. So make sure that this part you also mark that line. It is very important. It will help you to know where to sew or cut open. So I'll also go ahead and place this back on the lining and mark. So you can actually draft this pattern without using a pattern drafting. You can just cut it directly on your fabric, but I'm just using this so that it will be easier and more understandable. So after I'm done marking all this, I'll just go ahead and sew up this dart with ½ inch and re-sew this also. So just like I said, you don't need to cut it open. So for this part, you're going to go ahead to notch the main fabric. This is the main fabric that I'm working with. Notch or cut it exactly on that line and stop where that line stopped. Do not exceed. Go ahead to measure and mark. Divide your line into 4. So I'll just go ahead and cut, and I'll be placing and pinning it just like we did for the front pattern also. And make sure that the part that the wrong side of the loop is going to come out is the wrong side of the lining. So I'll just place and pin, and I will do this till I get to the end, and I'll also repeat this on the other side. So whatever I'm doing on this side of the fabric, I'm also doing it to the other side. Like the back has 2 sides, so you have to go ahead and do the same thing at both of the back. So after I'm done pinning it this way, I'll be stitching it up with ½ inch. So after that, I'll go ahead and stitch this with ½ inch, and after I'm done stitching, I'll bring it to show you what I have. So I'm done stitching, and I've also stitched the lining. So I'll place the lining on the main fabric, and I'll be stitching with ½ inch round. And make sure the part that you sewed on the dart is the part that you'll be using as the wrong side. So now I'll just go ahead and place and pin. Make sure you pin because of the scallop hemline we have at the lower part, so that it will be easier for you to sew. So after this, I'll stitch with ½ inch all the way around, but I will not stitch up the armhole, and I'll repeat this on the other side of the dress. After I'm done stitching, I'll go ahead to join the neckline of the front pattern and the neckline of the back pattern together. To do that, I'll place this and then take one and wrap over the other one, and I'll stitch with 1/2 inch. Then go ahead to place this and I will stitch with 1/2 inch also, but first I'll use the other one and I will wrap over the other and I will stitch with 1/2 inch. So after I'm done stitching with 1/2 inch, I'll also go ahead to stitch up my zipper. So I'm going to measure about my shoulder to waistline plus 7 inches, which is my hip point, and then I'll stitch with 1/2 inch at the lower part and also attach a zipper to it. So since we added a zipper allowance of 1.5 inches, we have used 1/2 inch to turn it, and we'll be stitching with 1 inch for the zipper allowance at the back of the dress. So here is my dress. I'm done joining the shoulder and I've ironed it out. So the next step is to go ahead to attach your sleeve. So for my sleeve, I don't want my sleeve to be too bulky, like I don't want to have a very big sleeve. So for the length of my sleeve, I'll be using about 30 inches. That's 15 inches on fold. So here I have about 22 inches. But I'm not going to go ahead to make use of all the fabric. So I'll be using about 30 inches by 17 or 18. So just like I said, you can use the slash and spread method. So I mentioned 2 methods when I was cutting out this sleeve, which is the slash and spread method. If you're using that method, you're going to spread the pattern on it, measure about 2, 3 or 5 inches space. It totally depends on how big you want your sleeve to be. So after you're done placing your pattern, you just go ahead to trace it out. So I also mentioned using the freehand method. So in this video, I'll be sharing 2 methods, which is the slash and spread I did in the cutting out. So for this part, I'll be using the freehand method, and to do that, all you have to do is just at the upper part, you create like a curve, like an armhole curve on the dress, and you extend this. After that, you just go ahead and trace it out, and you're going to cut out. So after I was done cutting this, remember that the length of the sleeve I had is about 20 to 22 inches. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I will be reducing it like up to 18 to 17, probably a little above my elbow point, and I will just trace it out. So after cutting this out, you'll be folding or creating an elastic casing at the lower part where you will pass your elastic, and go ahead to notch the upper part. So now you're going to bring your dress, and you're going to place your sleeve on it. So it's either you create a gathers on it or you're going to pleat it. So for me, I'm going to be pleating mine. I'll go ahead and I will pleat the sleeve at the armhole, and I'll be joining this with 1/2 inch, and also go ahead to insert elastic at the lower part of my dress. For the length of the elastic, measure your hand at that point and just cut out the measurements. So after that, you're going to shape the dress. So to shape the dress, all you need to do is just go ahead to pin the dress, and you're going to be sewing with 1/2 inch from the sleeve all the way to the lower part of the dress, and make sure that the front and the back is of the same length. If not, you can just go ahead and readjust it. And after I'm done sewing, this is the final look of the dress. I went ahead to lace. So if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and also join us in our next video. Thanks.